Did you know that if a cruise ship starts giving away massive amounts of free gourmet ice cream, it's often a secret signal that the ship's morgue is full and they need the freezer space for bodies? Most people think they're just on a floating hotel, but from the windowless, naughty rooms and onboard jails to the fact that you can be arrested in port just for wearing camouflage, there is a dark, absurd side to cruising that the cruise lines pray you never find out about, including why the captain is legally watching your private balcony right now. Stick around for 49 of the most bizarre, real-life cruise secrets that will change how you see the ocean forever. Subscribe now to unlock the secrets they don't tell you. 1. Wearing camouflage print is a literal crime in ports like St. Lucia because local authorities think you are trying to join the army. Imagine Chad from Florida stepping off the gangway in his favorite hunting cargo shorts, only to be greeted by a very serious man with a very real handcuffs. The local police do not care that you are just trying to find the nearest margarita stand because they see those green patterns and assume you are an international mercenary ready to stage a coup. This legal trap exists in several Caribbean islands where military gear is strictly for the professionals. Poor Chad spends his tropical vacation in a humid holding cell while his wife explains to the embassy that he is just a very confused tourist who likes Bass Pro Shops. 2. If you ever hear the crew whispering about a code PVI over their radios, you should probably move your flip-flops and run for cover immediately. This secret shorthand stands for a public vomiting incident, which is basically the crew's version of a biohazard alarm at a nuclear plant. This usually happens after a particularly rough night at the all-you-can-eat lobster buffet, combined with a few too many shots of cheap tequila at the karaoke bar. 1 minute, a guy named Gary is singing a shaky version of Journey, and the next minute, he is creating a colorful disaster on the expensive teak wood deck. The crew descends like a specialized SWAT team with sawdust and industrial chemicals, while other passengers watch in absolute horror and reconsider their lunch choices. 3. A single massive cruise ship goes through roughly 60,000 eggs every single week, which is enough to make a giant omelet that could probably be seen from outer space. Imagine a poor chef named Antonio who wakes up at 4 in the morning just to crack over 8,000 shells before the first hungry teenager even wakes up for breakfast. This mountain of poultry products is stacked high in the galley like a fragile skyscraper of protein waiting for a hungry mob of thousands. If one forklift driver has a bad day or hits a tiny bump, the entire kitchen becomes a yellow, sticky lake of yolk and broken dreams. Americans love their breakfast buffets so much that the ship basically becomes a floating chicken farm just to keep the scrambled egg station from starting a literal passenger riot. 4. Many modern megaships feature a giant dummy smokestack that does absolutely nothing except look majestic, while secretly housing luxury dog kennels for fancy pets. You might see dark smoke billowing from one funnel, but the other one is just a hollow metal lyre standing tall against the ocean breeze. Engineers realized that passengers would feel cheated if the ship did not look powerful, so they built these fake chimneys to keep the aesthetic vibes high. Inside the hollow shell of this architectural prank, your golden retriever is probably living his best life in a climate-controlled suite, while you are stuck in a tiny cabin downstairs. It is a hilarious trick of engineering designed to make the vessel look like a classic titan of the sea when it is really just a floating kennel with a very expensive hat. 5. There is a bizarre underground game happening right under your nose, where passengers hide thousands of tiny rubber ducks in the plants and rafters for others to find. This secret society of cruisers spends months decorating these plastic birds with tiny hats and glitter just to stash them behind a random fire extinguisher for a lucky child to discover. If you see a grown man in a Hawaiian shirt acting suspicious near a decorative vase, he is probably not a spy, but just a duck enthusiast looking for the perfect hiding spot. People join massive online groups to track these sightings, and some fanatics even bring hundreds of ducks in their luggage just to seed the ship with yellow plastic joy. It is a wholesome, yet totally weird obsession that turns a billion-dollar vessel into a giant scavenger hunt for rubber bathtub toys. 6. The most terrifying phrase a captain can hear is a total power loss, because the vacuum-sealed toilets on the ship stop flushing the very second the electricity dies. Without the mechanical suction to whisk away the evidence of that midnight buffet, the entire ship quickly turns into a floating nightmare that smells like a porta-potty in a heat wave. This notorious poop cruise scenario happened in real life, and thousands of passengers had to use red plastic bags while living in a humid swamp of human waste. People were literally sleeping on the decks just to breathe fresh air, while the hallways became a toxic obstacle course of regret. It is a dark reality that reminds every traveler that their luxury vacation is only one blown fuse away from becoming a very smelly survival movie on the high seas. 7. If you decide to get a little too rowdy during the midnight karaoke session, you might find yourself spending the night in the brig, which is a windowless, padded jail cell. This is not a metaphor, but a very real and very tiny room, located deep in the bowels of the ship, where security guards keep the most unruly passengers. There are no bars like a cartoon prison, but the heavy steel doors and lack of a minibar make it clear that your vacation fun has officially ended. Once you are locked inside this floating dungeon, the security team will keep you there until the ship reaches the next port, where local police wait to escort you away. It is the ultimate timeout for adults who forgot how to behave themselves while surrounded by an endless ocean and too much free rum. 8. Whenever you hear the words "bright star" echoing through the hallways over the intercom, it means a passenger is having a severe medical emergency like a heart attack. This secret code is designed to alert the medical rapid response team without causing a massive stampede of panicked tourists who are just trying to enjoy their bingo game. While you are casually sipping a pina colada and wondering what to wear for formal night, a team of doctors is sprinting through the service elevators with a defibrillator. The goal is to keep the atmosphere light and breezy, even when someone is literally fighting for their life, right next to the soft-serve ice cream machine. It is a chilling reminder that beneath the sparkly lights and loud music, the crew is constantly managing life or death situations in total secret. 9. Once the ship is far enough away from the coastline, the crew begins the process of waste snoozing, where pulverized food scraps are legally shot out into the deep ocean. This might sound like a giant underwater garbage disposal, but the maritime authorities technically consider this pulverized mush to be fish food for the local sea life. Imagine a giant cannon blasting thousands of pounds of leftover lasagna and half-eaten lobster tails into the dark blue waves for the sharks to enjoy. While it seems a bit gross, it is actually a highly regulated process that prevents the ship from becoming a floating landfill during a long voyage. The ocean becomes a giant drive-through for the fish, who probably wait for the ship to pass by so they can feast on the finest leftovers from the main dining room. 10. Most cruise ships are built with a glaring architectural gap because they completely skip Deck 13 to avoid scaring away superstitious travelers who think the number is cursed. You will step into the elevator and see the buttons jump straight from 12 to 14, as if the 13th floor simply vanished into another dimension. Ship owners know that some people are so terrified of bad luck that they would refuse to book a cabin on a floor associated with black cats and broken mirrors. It is a hilarious psychological trick that treats grown adults like children who are afraid of the boogeyman hiding in the hallway. Even in the modern age of high-tech navigation and satellite tracking, the maritime world still bows down to ancient fears of a single unlucky number. 11. If you want to witness the most stressful sport on the planet, you just have to look at the pier runners who sprint toward the ship as it pulls away. Passengers gather on their high balconies like Roman emperors at the Colosseum to either cheer for the runners or boo them for their terrible time management skills. Imagine a frantic tourist named Susan clutching a giant souvenir sombrero and sprinting down the concrete dock while the massive vessel slowly detaches from the land. The crew watches with cold indifference as the gap between the pier and the ship grows larger, and the realization hits Susan that she is now stranded in a foreign country. It is a hilarious and brutal display of human desperation that provides free entertainment for everyone who actually bothered to check their watch. 12. The terrifying reality of people falling overboard is that the railings are built chest high, so almost every single incident involves someone intentionally climbing where they should not be. You do not just trip and fly over a steel barrier into the dark abyss of the Atlantic Ocean without some serious effort or a very bad decision. Most of these nautical disasters involve a person trying to get the ultimate selfie, or perhaps a daredevil who thought they could parkour between balconies after a few stiff drinks. When the alarm finally sounds and the massive searchlights hit the water, it is usually because someone decided the safety rules did not apply to them. The ocean is unforgiving, and those railings are the only thing standing between a fun vacation and becoming a permanent resident of the deep sea. 13. If you try to sneak your favorite heating blanket or a tangled extension cord onto the ship, you will likely find a very stern note in your suitcase. Security officers hunt for these items like they are searching for contraband because a single stray spark can turn a luxury vessel into a floating bonfire in minutes. Your confiscated electronics are taken to a legendary place known as the Naughty Room, where they sit in a pile of shame until the very last day of the sailing. Imagine an angry traveler named Bob trying to explain to a security guard that his back really needs the warmth while the guard just points at the fire hazard sign. It is a strict rule that turns the crew into the ultimate bedroom monitors who ensure your cozy habits do not accidentally sink the entire vacation. 14. Deep below the glittery chandeliers and the fancy champagne bars, the crew members have their own secret sanctuary known as the Red Party. This is an underground world where the staff can finally let loose and buy drinks for as cheap as $1.50 while the passengers pay 10 times that upstairs. While you are struggling to find a seat at the main theater, the cooks and cleaners are throwing an absolute rager in a windowless room near the engine block. These parties are legendary for their intensity because the crew works incredibly long hours and needs to blow off steam away from the prying eyes of the guests. It is a hidden society with its own rules and its own economy, where the people who run the ship finally get to be the stars. 15. You will never find a toaster inside a cruise ship cabin because bread-related house fires are the #1 fear of every captain on the 7 seas. Even the massive industrial toasters at the buffet are equipped with high-tech fire suppression systems that could probably put out a small volcano in seconds. If you try to bring your own bagel pop-up machine, the sensors will detect it faster than a bloodhound, and you will be escorted to the security office for a very awkward lecture. The maritime industry decided a long time ago that a golden brown piece of toast is not worth the risk of a massive emergency in the middle of the ocean. You have to walk all the way to the Lido deck for your carbs because your room is strictly a bread heating free zone. 16. Most people think cruise ships are built like giant puzzles piece by piece, but they are actually assembled using modular Lego-style rooms that are built in factories. Each cabin is a self-contained box with the plumbing and the carpet and even the bed already installed before it ever touches the water. Giant cranes at the shipyard lift these prefabricated rooms and slot them into the massive steel frame of the ship with incredible precision. This means your room was probably sitting in a warehouse in Germany, months before it was shoved into the side of a billion-dollar vessel like a drawer in a dresser. It is a marvel of modern engineering that allows companies to build these floating cities at a record-breaking speed while ensuring every single bathroom looks exactly the same. 17. The art auction hustle is one of the most bizarre sights on a ship where millions of dollars in fine art are sold right next to the pizza station. You can walk past a stack of pepperoni slices and suddenly find yourself bidding on a genuine Salvador Dali or a rare Peter Max painting while wearing a swimsuit. These paintings are stored in the same corridors where the crew hauls trash, and they are often sold to impulsive travelers who have had one too many margaritas. The auctioneer talks at a lightning pace to convince a guy named Dave from Ohio that he absolutely needs a $3,000 lithograph of a melting clock for his living room. It is a surreal blend of high-class culture and buffet chaos that makes absolutely no sense until you see the sales figures. 18. If you ever look down at the carpet in a high-traffic area and notice a chaotic explosion of colors and shapes, there is a very gross reason for that design. These vomit carpets are specifically engineered with busy patterns to hide stains and trick your brain into not feeling the motion of the ship. The swirls and zigzags are a visual defense mechanism designed to camouflage any accidental spills from passengers who could not handle the rocking waves. It is a dark reality of ship maintenance, where interior designers have to prioritize the hideability of human fluids over actual style or aesthetic beauty. Every time you walk to your cabin, you are stepping on a masterpiece of engineering that is literally designed to mask the aftermath of a very rough night at sea. 19. According to ancient maritime law, captains used to have the power to put asunder, which basically means they could legally separate a couple who was causing too much trouble. While they cannot grant you a modern divorce, they were once the ultimate authority who could decide if a marriage was simply too toxic for the confined space of a ship. Imagine a captain named Miller getting so tired of a couple arguing over directions to the spa that he officially bans them from speaking to each other for the rest of the voyage. While this power is rarely used in the modern era, it remains a hilarious reminder that the captain is the absolute king of his floating domain. If you start a fight on the high seas, the man in the white hat has the legal right to shut it down. 20. On every major cruise ship, there is one dedicated crew member whose entire 24-hour job is to ensure that the bread for the buffet is always warm and fresh. This baker lives in a permanent cycle of dough and yeast, never seeing the sun, while they pump out thousands of rolls and croissants for the hungry masses upstairs. While the passengers are sleeping off their hangovers or watching the sunset, this lone hero is kneading flour in a hot kitchen to make sure your morning toast is perfect. It is a relentless and exhausting position that keeps the ship fueled because the moment the bread runs out, the social order on the vessel would likely collapse into total anarchy. The bread must flow at all costs, even if it means one person never leaves the oven room. 21. If the crew suddenly starts handing out massive amounts of free premium ice cream for no apparent reason, you should probably start worrying about the ship's infrastructure. While you might think it is just a generous gesture from the cruise line, it actually usually means the main industrial freezers have suffered a catastrophic failure. Instead of letting thousands of gallons of expensive Rocky Road melt into a sticky soup, the kitchen staff scrambles to give it all away to the unsuspecting passengers. Imagine a guy named Mike eating his 5th bowl of vanilla bean while the engineers are sweating bullets in the basement trying to fix a broken cooling pipe. It is a delicious but desperate race against time where the guests are basically used as human storage units for the frozen inventory before it spoils. 22. You can turn your tiny cabin into an organized command center once you realize that the walls are actually made of solid steel hidden behind the wallpaper. Savvy travelers bring heavy-duty magnets to hang their daily schedules and wet swimsuits and even heavy bags because every square inch of the room is technically a giant refrigerator door. Imagine a first-time cruiser named Karen staring in confusion as her neighbor sticks a full-sized shoe rack directly onto the wall without a single nail or screw. It is a secret engineering hack that the cruise lines do not really advertise, but it completely changes the game for people living in a space the size of a walk-in closet. Your room is a metallic fortress, and once you start using magnets, you will never look at a cabin wall the same way again. 23. The cabin stewards are not just cleaning experts, but are also highly trained in the ancient and weird art of towel origami, where they can create over 40 different animal species from linens. You might walk into your room after a long day of excursions and find a fluffy white monkey hanging from a clothes hanger or a majestic swan sitting on your pillow. These fabric sculptures are a staple of the cruise experience, designed to make you feel like the crew is your personal creative team. However, it can be a bit startling for a tired tourist named Gary who walks into his dark room and thinks a giant linen cobra is ready to strike from the nightstand. It is a whimsical touch that proves even the most basic household items can be turned into a zoo with enough practice and creativity. 24. If your ship is passing through high-risk waters near the coast of Africa, you might participate in pirate drills where the crew prepares to fight off actual sea bandits. Passengers are ordered to stay away from the windows and move to the interior hallways while the crew deploys high-pressure water cannons along the lower decks. Imagine a family from Nebraska trying to enjoy their afternoon tea, while the security team is practicing how to blast a skiff out of the water with a wall of liquid force. These drills are a serious reminder that the ocean is still a wild place where modern luxury occasionally meets ancient dangers. While the chance of a real encounter is low, the ship is basically turned into a floating fortress, ready to repel anyone who tries to crash the party without a ticket. 25. Every cruise ship is legally required to carry body bags and maintain a refrigerated morgue because people occasionally pass away while living their best life at sea. Since these ships carry thousands of elderly passengers, it is a statistical reality that the medical team has to be prepared for the ultimate checkout. The morgue is usually hidden in a secure area near the food storage, which is a fact that most people at the buffet would probably prefer not to think about. If someone passes away during a 10-day voyage, the ship does not just turn around, but instead keeps the guest in cold storage until they reach a major port. It is a grim but necessary part of maritime operations that ensures the vacation continues for everyone else, while the medical team handles the paperwork. 26. If you see a meeting on the daily schedule for the Friends of Bill W., you might think it is a private birthday party for a guy named Bill, but it is actually a secret code. This is the international shorthand for Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, which allows passengers to find support without having to announce their business to the entire ship. Cruise lines use these discreet names to protect the privacy of guests who want to stay sober in an environment where the booze is flowing like a waterfall. Imagine a woman named Sarah feeling relieved to see the meeting listed right between the salsa lessons and the bingo game. It is a respectful and subtle way for the crew to facilitate a healthy community while keeping the party atmosphere intact for the rest of the thousands of people on board. 27. On high-end luxury lines, you will find a strict self-service prohibition where you are physically not allowed to touch the serving spoons at the buffet. Instead of a chaotic free-for-all where everyone handles the same tongs, the staff stands behind the glass to serve every single scoop of mashed potatoes themselves. This is a high-stakes hygiene tactic designed to prevent a single sick passenger from becoming the patient zero of a massive norovirus outbreak. While it might feel a bit fancy to have a gloved waiter hand you a single chicken wing, it is actually a desperate defense against a ship-wide stomach bug. They know that if one person with dirty hands touches the salad tongs, the entire vacation could end with everyone stuck in their bathrooms for a week. 28. If you ever get lost in the endless hallways of a Norwegian cruise line ship, you just have to look at the carpet to find your way back to civilization. The tiny fish patterns on the floor are not just a cute nautical decoration, because they are actually swimming toward the front of the vessel at all times. If you are walking against the flow of the fish, you are heading toward the back of the ship, which is an incredibly simple trick for confused tourists who have had a few too many drinks. Imagine a guy named Dave spinning in circles in a hallway that looks identical in both directions until he remembers the secret of the fish. This clever engineering of the interior design serves as a permanent compass that keeps thousands of people from wandering aimlessly through the massive steel maze. 29. Many cruise lines offer a hidden service for formal night rentals, because they know that at least 30% of the men on board will completely forget to pack their suits. You can walk down to a secret tailor shop on the lower decks and rent a full tuxedo that has been worn by hundreds of other people before you. Imagine a guy named Steve who realized he only brought cargo shorts and flip-flops, but now needs to look like James Bond for the captain's dinner. The crew quickly fits him into a polyester suit that was likely cleaned in an industrial steamer just an hour ago. It is a lucrative side business for the ship that thrives on the forgetfulness of American travelers who are more focused on the pool than their formal wear. 30. A single large cruise ship can produce as much air pollution every single day as 1 million cars, which is a dark reality that most passengers ignore while breathing the sea air. While you are standing on the deck, enjoying the breeze, the massive engines below are burning through thousands of gallons of heavy fuel that leaves a giant invisible footprint across the ocean. The environmental impact is so massive that some ports have started banning these giant vessels to protect their local air quality from the thick exhaust. It is a staggering statistic that turns your luxury vacation into a massive carbon-emitting powerhouse that dwarfs the impact of an entire city of vehicles. While the cruise lines are working on greener technology for now, the sheer scale of the pollution is one of the industry's most guarded and uncomfortable secrets. 31. Many captains on the high seas strictly enforce a handshake ban because they are absolutely terrified of becoming patient zero in a massive viral outbreak. You might see the man in the white hat walking through the dining room with his hands tucked firmly behind his back like a royal prince avoiding a common cold. While it looks like he is just being formal, he is actually dodging the thousands of germs living on the hands of tourists who just spent all day touching elevator buttons and slot machines. Imagine a friendly guy named Larry reaching out for a high five only to be met with a polite but very firm nod from the captain who values ship safety over social graces. It is a calculated move to ensure the person steering the billion-dollar vessel does not end up bedridden with a stomach bug. 32. The ghost pilot is a local expert who must perform a death-defying stunt by climbing a shaky rope ladder onto a moving cruise ship just to steer it through tricky ports. Even though the captain is a master of the open ocean, local laws require a specialized harbor pilot who knows every hidden rock and shallow sandbar in the area. Imagine a tiny boat pulling up alongside the massive steel hull of the ship while a brave soul jumps onto a ladder dangling over the churning waves. This person takes over the bridge and guides the giant vessel into the dock while the passengers are busy eating shrimp and have no idea a stranger just climbed into the cockpit. It is a high-stakes tradition that keeps the ship from crashing into the pier or getting stuck in the mud. 33 cruise lines have a very specific calculation for the 2 a.m. Pizza debt, because they know the average passenger will consume exactly 1.5 pizzas every single night after the bars close. The late-night pizza station is a chaotic battlefield where hungry travelers gather in their pajamas to demand extra pepperoni while their brains are still fuzzy from the dance floor. The kitchen staff prepares for this nightly surge like they are bracing for a hurricane because they know the line will stretch out the door until the sun comes up. Imagine a guy named Kevin standing in line at 3 in the morning, trying to explain why he needs an entire pie for himself while the chef just sighs and tosses another crust into the oven. It is a massive logistical operation that keeps the ship fueled on cheese and grease. 34. Ships are equipped with giant retractable fins, known as stabilizers, that fold out from the underwater hull to stop the vessel from rocking like a cradle in a storm. These massive metal wings use high-tech sensors to counteract the force of the waves and keep your martini from splashing all over your expensive vacation shirt. While you are walking down the hallway feeling perfectly steady, these giant underwater arms are fighting a literal war against the ocean to keep the ship level. Imagine a first-time cruiser looking out at a massive storm while the ship stays perfectly flat because the engineering team has deployed the secret wings below the waterline. It is a marvel of physics that allows a massive skyscraper of steel to glide over a turbulent sea without everyone losing their lunch at the same time. 35. If you try to fly a kite off the back of a cruise ship, you will be shut down faster than a leak in the hull because it is strictly forbidden by maritime law. This is not because the crew hates fun, but because a stray kite can interfere with the incredibly sensitive radar and navigation equipment on the bridge. Imagine a teenager named Tyler trying to catch the ocean breeze with a bright red kite, only for a security team to swoop in like he is deploying a spy drone. The captain needs a clear signal to track other ships and weather patterns, and your plastic toy is a literal radio frequency nightmare for the officers upstairs. You have to leave the kite at home because on a cruise ship, the only thing allowed in the air is the smell of sunscreen and diesel. 36. Balloons are strictly banned on almost every major cruise line, because if they fly away into the wind, they become a literal death sentence for sea turtles and other marine life. A stray birthday balloon that pops over the ocean looks exactly like a delicious jellyfish to a hungry turtle, which leads to a tragic end for the local wildlife. Cruise lines take this environmental rule so seriously that they will confiscate your party decorations at the security gate before you even board the ship. Imagine a disappointed child watching their colorful balloons get put into a bin while the guard explains that we have to save the turtles from our celebration. It is a small sacrifice to make to ensure that the beautiful blue water stays a safe home for the creatures that live beneath the waves. 37. If you want to find the casino, you just have to wait until the ship is exactly 12 nautical miles from land, because that is when the tax-free drifting officially begins. Once the vessel enters international waters, the local laws and gambling taxes of the nearest country no longer apply, which allows the house to rake in the cash. The second the ship crosses that invisible line in the ocean, the lights on the slot machines flicker to life and the dealers start shuffling the cards like a coordinated army. Imagine a crowd of eager gamblers standing at the velvet rope, like they are waiting for a concert to start while the captain checks his GPS for the magic coordinate. It is a legal loophole that turns a normal boat into a floating Vegas where the taxman is not allowed to follow. 38. Many crew members live in tiny cabins located far below the waterline where they have to listen to the constant low-frequency whir of the massive engines 24 hours a day. While the passengers are enjoying ocean views and balcony breezes, the people who actually run the ship are sleeping in windowless rooms that vibrate with every turn of the propeller. This underground world has its own culture and its own rhythm, because the crew is physically separated from the luxury world by several floors of solid steel. Imagine a waiter named Carlos trying to sleep while the giant engine block right next to his bed hums like a continuous earthquake. It is a tough life for the staff, who spend months in the dark belly of the beast just to make sure your vacation is perfectly smooth and silent. 39. Your morning shower water was likely floating in the salty ocean just 20 minutes ago, before it was sucked into the engine room and processed through a massive desalination plant. Cruise ships use the heat from their own engines to boil and filter seawater into pure fresh water that is safe enough to drink and wash your hair with. This engineering magic allows the ship to be completely self-sufficient, so they do not have to carry millions of gallons of heavy water from the shore. Imagine a woman named Linda marveling at how soft the water feels, while a giant machine in the basement is busy stripping the salt away from the Atlantic. It is a constant cycle of suction and filtration that turns the endless blue sea into a never-ending supply of luxury for the guests on board. 40. A single link in a cruise ship's massive anchor chain can weigh over 100 pounds, which makes the entire assembly heavy enough to crush a truck like a soda can. When the captain decides to drop anchor, the sound of that giant metal snake sliding out of the hull is loud enough to wake up every passenger on the lower decks. This chain is the only thing standing between the ship and a very expensive accident if the engines fail near a rocky coastline. Imagine a group of engineers watching as the massive rust-colored links splash into the water with enough force to create a localized tsunami. It is a brutal and primitive piece of equipment hidden inside a high-tech vessel reminding everyone that even a billion-dollar ship still relies on heavy iron to stay in place. 41. Italian ships almost always skip deck 17 because the number 17 is an anagram for the Latin word vixi, which literally means, "My life is over." For superstitious sailors and fearful passengers, seeing that number on an elevator button is like seeing a giant neon sign pointing toward a watery grave. This ancient Roman curse is taken so seriously that architects simply pretend the entire floor does not exist, just to keep the vibes from turning dark. Imagine an American tourist named Todd wandering around looking for a room that isn't there because the Italians decided the alphabet was out to get them. It is a hilarious blend of modern luxury and old-world panic, where a simple spelling error from 2,000 years ago dictates the layout of a billion-dollar megaship. 42. A ship is officially considered cursed by the maritime gods if the celebrity godmother fails to break the ceremonial champagne bottle on the hull during the first try. This high-stakes tradition involves a famous person swinging a bottle of bubbly at a massive steel wall while thousands of people watch in breathless silence. If the glass bounces off without shattering, the crew immediately starts sweating because they believe the vessel is now destined for engine failures and terrible storms. Imagine a nervous pop star swinging with all her might only for the bottle to stay intact, while the captain secretly considers jumping overboard to avoid the bad luck. It is a weird ritual where the entire future of a massive engineering masterpiece depends on a single piece of fragile glass and a good swing. 43. Crimes committed in international waters are governed by the laws of the country where the ship is registered rather than the home country of the passengers on board. If you decide to start a brawl on a ship flying a Bahamian flag, you are technically standing on Bahamian soil even if you are drifting off the coast of Florida. This legal maze makes it incredibly difficult for local police to investigate incidents because the jurisdiction belongs to a small island nation thousands of miles away. Imagine a guy named Frank getting into trouble and realizing his lawyer back in Ohio has no power in a world where the flag on the mast is the only law that matters. It is a wild west of legal loopholes that keeps ship security busy and defense attorneys very confused. 44. Many cruise ships feature a hidden top deck surrounded by very high walls designed specifically for European-style sunbathing, where clothing is strictly optional. This secluded area is tucked away from the main pools and family zones so that adults can get a full tan without causing a scandal among the more conservative travelers. While the kids are busy at the water slides, a group of daring tourists is soaking up the sun in a way that would probably get them arrested at a public park in Kansas. Imagine a confused dad named Mark accidentally wandering through the wrong door and stumbling into a sea of naked sunbathers while he was just looking for the jogging track. It is a private sanctuary of freedom that exists just a few feet away from the crowded buffet and the family bingo. 45. It takes a massive cruise ship 1 full mile to come to a complete stop, even after the captain hits the emergency brakes and reverses the engines. These vessels weigh hundreds of thousands of tons and have so much momentum that they basically become an unstoppable force once they are moving at full speed. If a small boat or a stray iceberg appears on the horizon, the crew has to react minutes in advance because you cannot just swerve a floating skyscraper like a sports car. Imagine a nervous lookout staring at a distant object while the captain slowly turns the wheel and prays the physics of weight and water are on his side today. It is a terrifying reality that reminds every passenger that on the ocean you are riding a giant that takes forever to change its mind. 46. Some elderly people have decided to live on cruise ships year-round because the monthly cost is actually cheaper than staying in a high-end American nursing home. These permanent residents get fresh meals and daily housekeeping and live entertainment for a fraction of the price of a stationary facility on land. Imagine a 90-year-old woman named Gladys, who spends her retirement traveling the world and flirting with the piano player instead of sitting in a quiet room with a jigsaw puzzle. The crew becomes her surrogate family, and she knows every secret of the ship, from the best hidden chairs to the exact time the cookies come out of the oven. It is the ultimate life hack for the golden years, where the ocean is your backyard and the staff is always there to help. 47. The Church of Scientology actually owns and operates a permanent cruise ship called the Free Winds, which serves as a high-level retreat for their most dedicated members. This ship stays mostly in the Caribbean and is used for secretive religious training that is not available anywhere else on the planet. While other ships are full of belly flop contests and bottomless mimosas, this vessel is filled with people studying ancient texts and undergoing intense spiritual auditing sessions. Imagine a regular tourist boat pulling up alongside this mysterious ship and seeing a crew that looks a bit too organized and a deck that is a bit too quiet. It is a floating fortress for a controversial organization that proves the high seas are the perfect place to hide a secret world from the rest of the public. 48. Many passengers suffer from a strange condition called sea legs syndrome, where they continue to feel like they are rocking and swaying for weeks after they return home. You might be standing in a quiet grocery store in the middle of a desert state like Arizona, and suddenly feel the floor tilt beneath your feet, as if a giant wave just hit the cereal aisle. This happens because your brain worked so hard to adapt to the motion of the ship that it forgot how to handle solid ground once you stepped off the gangway. Imagine a guy named Bill clutching his kitchen counter in total panic while his wife explains that the house is not actually sinking into the backyard. It is a lingering souvenir from the ocean that turns a normal walk into a dizzying reminder of your vacation. 49. Captains have access to high-tech security cameras that can see directly onto your private balcony, which means your secret outdoor area is never as private as you think. While you might feel like you are alone with the ocean breeze, the bridge crew can see exactly what you are doing if they decide to check the monitors for safety or security reasons. Many couples have been caught in very awkward situations by a bored security guard who was just scanning the hull for smoke or unauthorized climbers. Imagine a couple thinking they are having a romantic moment under the stars, only to realize they are the main attraction on a high-definition screen in the control room. It is a final reminder that on a cruise ship, privacy is an illusion, and the big brother in the white hat is always watching. So there you have it. Hi folks, 49 reasons why your dream vacation is actually a floating fever dream where the rules are made up and your dignity is strictly optional. If you learned that you've been eating ship-processed ocean water, or that your captain is dodging your handshake like a tax collector, then you have officially experienced a brain fumble. If you laughed at Chad in his camo shorts, do the right thing. Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss our next deep dive into absurdity. Now be honest in the comments. Which one of these facts made you want to cancel your booking and stay on dry land forever?